An SSP audio by Jose Stevens about a process known as Psychopomp, guiding a dying or deceased soul from Earth to the afterlife. To view more topics within the SSP audio library, visit shamanicpractice.org.
Hello, this is Jose Stevens from the Power Path School of Shamanism, and this short audio is entitled, What is a Psychopomp in Shamanic Practice? So what I found talking to people in the shamanic community is that a lot of people don't know what a psychopomp is. It's kind of an odd word. And people just kind of shrug their shoulders and look blank. So this short audio is to help clarify what a psychopomp is and what it has to do with shamanism. So according to Wikipedia, the word psychopomp comes from the Greek word psychopompos, or psychopompos is actually where the accent is. The word psychopompos literally means the guides of souls, and they're creatures, spirits, angels, or deities in many religions, whose responsibility is to escort newly deceased souls from the earth to the afterlife. In shamanic practice, this is one of the traditional jobs of the shaman, to guide people who have died to where they need to go. And in this area of work, there are many possibilities. There are ordinary people who are dying and need the help of the shaman as a kind of midwife to accompany them across the boundary between physical life and the spirit world. The shaman returns, but the dying person does not. Then there are situations where a person may have died traumatically, long ago maybe, but failed to make a proper transition. So they're caught in the middle between the worlds, so to speak. No longer in the body, but not really moving on either. And these situations often involve dealing with ghosts, as they are referred to around the world. The shaman's job is to make contact with the spirit of the dead individual, and give them the help they need to move on to wherever they need to go. Where they need to go is a big topic that we actually won't go into here in any great depth. There are many places for souls to go on, but not the simplistic heaven or hell of religion, but a vast network of landscapes and places of study where like-minded souls gather to continue their evolution. Souls tend to go to the locations that are resonant with their development, but sometimes there are delays and obstacles to overcome in getting there. The shaman's job in this situation is typically to connect the dead person's soul with a guide, an ally, or a helping spirit that will take them all the way to their proper destination. Sometimes the dead person's spirit is still attached to some situation that occurred around their death, or some unfinished business with relatives, or whatever, and so they're reluctant to move on. The shaman may have to educate them and help them to let go of their attachment so they can move along properly. Sometimes the dead person has been traumatized by their death and has simply withdrawn in fright and distrust. This is often true, for example, of a child who might have been murdered. The shaman's job to find them is to find them and gain their confidence and help to connect them with their guide to move onward. Sometimes in the event of a sudden accident or a murder, a dead individual's spirit does not know they have died. They're confused and they think they're still living in the house where they may have passed on. The shaman might have to clarify to them that they're indeed no longer in the body and need to move along. So you can see that there are many situations that a shaman, as psychopomp, has to deal with. Now, the shaman as psychopomp doesn't always go all the way to the person's destination that has died. Their job is to help them to get there, and so that may be that they, like I said, connect them with their ally or spirit guide that will then take them all the way. So they act as a kind of midwife. They don't necessarily accompany the person all the way to their final destination, but they act as a midwife, helping to ease that transition and make it effective. Sometimes the shaman might be asked to assist someone with their dying process. For example, to help them have a trouble-free or positive death experience. The shaman may sit with them and sing shamanic songs to support their process and offer their services, maybe other services of healing, listening to them, preparing them through guidance, counseling, and the like. They might play music to them and pray with them, or interpret their dreams, do journey work and drumming with them, or use rattles to move the energy that may be stuck, causing them anxiety or fearfulness about their upcoming transition. Some of their work may involve calming the dying person when they have frightening dreams or thoughts about dying. At times, the shaman may function as a teacher, educating the person on the stages ahead and showing them how to navigate the terrain before and after death. The shaman may be required to help the person let go of attachment to situations or responsibilities that the dying person is trying to resolve or is of concern to them, like, for example, the welfare of their children or their unfinished business. Maybe what's going to happen with their estate and inheritance issues and things like that. Who's going to receive what after they die? The shaman's job may also entail helping the dying person to forgive themselves for crimes or actions that they regret and wish they had not done during their life. Sometimes they're afraid of dying because of the reprisals or punishment that they believe is waiting for them on the other side. All this can be part of the shaman's job. Incidentally, a psychopomp is not a medium who contacts the spirits of dead people so that the living can talk to them or have some kind of contact with them. That's a different specialty. And on occasion it may be that the shaman has both skills and they can do either one. But that particularly is not the job of a psychopomp. That's a different service. There are a few specific things that shamans know as part of their training that are not generally known by hospice workers and as a service only that they can provide. For one, sometimes people have a difficult time in disengaging from the body they've been using for maybe the last 50, 60, 70 years. There are a variety of methods to help someone disengage from their body. For example, the Shipibos of Peru, they live in the upper Amazon region, they use a specific tobacco blowing technique that helps to loosen the attachments to the body, allowing the spirit to leave more easily with less resistance. It's similar to administering a mild laxative to the body so that it can let go of the essence or spirit more easily. In general, this and other methods are done very late in the dying process, when it's clear that the dying person is on their final journey out of the body. So these are processes that should not be done too early. They may be done prior to the passage out of the body for a person dying slowly of a disease, but they can also be done right after for example, a person who dies in an accident or has a heart attack, and maybe they're officially declared dead, but they can still be administered to by a shaman to help their essence to leave their body. Sometimes the body is still there. The spirit is still there in the body, rather. Secondly, shamans are the ones who know about protection when it comes to working with dying people. There's an energy that accompanies death that is helpful to the dying person, but not healthy for the living. It's like a pea green energy that begins to show up during the last stages of the death process. And this energy actually helps the dying person leave the body. Shamans know how to work with this energy and protect themselves and others by using tobacco and other purifiers. But the average person doesn't know this, and they may absorb this pea-green energy in a way that is debilitating for them. People who chronically work around dying people, or who have had a series of deaths in their families, can sometimes die themselves from accumulating too much of this non-life promoting energy. So this is no trivial matter. Unfortunately, many tribal peoples have become very superstitious about death and the dying and seek to avoid being around it at all costs. This is unfortunate because all it takes is a little knowledge to deal with it in a helpful way. And these are specific areas of a shaman's training that hospice workers and nurses and doctors and people that work around dying people in hospitals have no training for whatsoever, and so they're at risk. They're highly vulnerable, and I've personally worked with many nurses and doctors who were in a bad way because they don't protect themselves. They don't learn that in medical school or in their medical training. Sorely neglected area. Finally, during the actual moments of passage out of the body, a portal opens up in the space around the dying person, nearby them. This portal is shaped like a Vesica Pisces and is specifically for their passage out of the body into the spirit world, as shamans describe it. The reverse of the vagina and the birth canal. It opens up moments before the moment of death and closes, or it's supposed to close, soon thereafter. However, like all things, there can be anomalies or difficulties surrounding it, just as there are problems with some births. Sometimes the portal remains open longer than is necessary, or longer than it should, and this can be hazardous. Think of the airlock to enter or exit a space station. It's made to be open briefly, but not for extended periods of time because of the hazards involved. For example, extreme cold or heat, space objects that could enter, and so on. The same is true for the death portal. Any bridge between the worlds is subject to some leakage. Things may enter that should not. Things may escape that should not. So if the portal in the room where someone has died recently has not been shut completely, the room can be hazardous for living people to enter. A shaman may have to be called to close the portal up tight. However, without this specialized knowledge, there may be adverse consequences. Sometimes, just in the few minutes or moments that the portal opens to allow the spirit of the dead person to pass through, something could slip in that should not. For example, if the person who has just died was a hardcore alcoholic or drug addict, then that person may have attracted many low vibrational spirits and or parasites to themselves. And upon their death, these spirits may seek to attach themselves to another living person in the room at the time of death. That's not a good thing. A shaman may have to clear that person or whoever was present in the room. Again, without their specialized knowledge, there could be problems for the vulnerable people present at the death. And just a word more about the portal, the shape the portal is in, the Vesica Pisces. A Vesica Pisces is shaped like an oval. It's like when you have two overlapping circles, two circles of the same size, but one circle overlaps the other, and its edge goes through the center of the other circle. That creates a Vesica Pisces shape. It's like an oval. And that's what we're talking about as being the shape of a Vesica Pisces. So by the same token, there may be times when the portal just doesn't open, to let the dying person through. And in this case, the spirit of the dying person they can't leave their body in a timely way, or they exit the body only to be stuck in the room without a way through and out. This can happen if there are family members or others present who are in great resistance to the dying person's leaving because of their own attachment. This may cause the dying person to feel ambivalent about leaving until they are at the edge of the precipice with nowhere to go. You know, sometimes the body is so damaged that the spirit can no longer occupy it and they have to leave. But if there's no portal, then they're just in the space in the room waiting for the portal to open up so they can leave. And that presents a problem both for the dying person's spirit and for the people in the room. So that's where a shaman's training comes in, to make sure that portal is open so that spirit can move through it. Sometimes people ask, how can you tell if there have been problems with the portal? And the answer is very simple. The bystander to whom this has happened does not feel good, and the feeling persists. When they have been cleared, they feel so much better, much better. The other way you can tell is that if you enter the room after death, it doesn't feel good. It may feel heavy or cloying and thick. It should feel lighter and more open if the death process was successful. So, bystanders in the room, health professionals, anybody that was there when the person took their last breath, they won't feel good if the portal wasn't open or if the process wasn't successful. They'll feel like something's incomplete here. It doesn't feel right. They'll go home that way. They'll go home with a feeling of like there's some baggage. Something wasn't right. Something wasn't cleared. And they would be right. And I've met people who experienced this, and it wasn't until they were cleared that they felt good again. And sometimes that can be months after they were present at someone's death. So I've been speaking of the tasks of the shaman as a psychopomp in cases where one person is going through the death process. However, there are times when many people die at once, as in battles, explosions, traffic accidents, train or plane accidents, earthquakes, floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, and the like. It's usually not possible to tend to each individual when this happens. What is possible is to communicate with spirits on the other side and ask them to help in the situation, whatever it may be. So in this case, the shaman becomes like an advocate for the dead and the dying, requesting help from the many volunteers on the other side. This does not necessarily only apply to recent events. Sometimes there's an old battlefield of 100 years ago. It still has a few spirits of the dead that are having difficulty moving on. They're stuck there for years. And by helping them to do so, and with the help of some tobacco, which is my favorite medicine for the job, the physical environment will feel better, lighter, cleaner. This is all palpable to somebody who's sensitive to subtle energies, which can be cultivated through training. Now, hopefully, this brief little course in the work of a psychopomp will help you to understand the nature of their work better and interest you in gathering more training and experience so that you too can facilitate in this much needed service. There's way more people that are needed with this kind of training than currently have it. So, unfortunately, problems that arise in the death process are often not addressed, and they can create problems for other people, living people, for a long time thereafter, and even caused them to experience ill health or even facilitate their own death, and not in a good way. So hopefully this has clarified what a psychopomp is, and how shamans do this kind of work.